Hello, good evening. I'm going to do a live. I want to have a talk. A lot of conservatives have come back to me. Like I said, it always goes in waves. I recognize people from the past, some PPC too. And it's funny how, it's people will get upset in narratives until it comes to fruition and then they come back. I've actually restored pretty much my entire friends list from Trump's time. I think people are starting to accept things, and I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty laid back. I see everybody starting to log on now. Good to see everybody coming on tonight. I want to have a real good talk here about constitutionalism. For those who followed me a long time, I know this won't be very good for you, but for a lot of people, especially those coming back to me who haven't been around for a while, or since I did my election run in 2019, I've been extremely busy on the world stage. I've been out in every academic circle, major university worldwide, almost a good portion of the best of the best. And it's just been an incredible experience for me, all on constitutionalism, policy, and economics. So the constitutionalism is the big one. I've never had so much access to so many lawyers in my life, especially the best of the best, people who actually train judges. Can you believe that? So, and I've met some Supreme Court justices all around the world, one including in the United States, Europe. It's been an incredible journey. While I've done all this work and I've read just volumes and volumes of things I never would have expected to ever get into, but what I want to give to all of you tonight is an explanation on constitutionalism, what it really means, what's wrong with Canada, why I went on this particular path, what's wrong absolutely with our provinces, what's wrong absolutely with our territories. So what I'm doing with the party I'm building right now, and I'm going to get registered here probably likely within the next 2 months, maybe 6, depends how that goes with Elections Canada, but I would think it'll be a matter of months. It's going pretty fast, faster already than I had expected. But so let's look at federal Canada. Now there's a problem here that Canadians don't realize, and it's what I've went out on the world stage, been to every continent on this earth in academia now, and Canada, you suffer from this constitutional monarchy, which isn't really outrageous, but what's really outrageous here is in the embedded system of absolute colonialism. So Canadians, what you don't realize, the problems you're having in politics, we haven't let go of colonialism. It's still a strong component of our Constitution. Now the world has outlawed this. It absolutely was outlawed in 1946. For Canada, officially 1952, the absolute end of colonialism, 100%. The problem is, Canada didn't finish the process because the King of England died, and I've talked about this lots. Canada was left with this colonial power inside its constitution. Our elected politicians took that crown power from themselves. Instead of dissolving it, getting it out of our Constitution, immediately holding constitutional amendments to absolutely have all of the colonial systems dismembered, they call it, from our Constitution. That's what King George was working on with Canada. He got to the point where there were no more Governor General from United Kingdom. There was no more lieutenant governors from the United Kingdom, and he had transitioned the Privy Council from UK and Canada away and into a Canada-only system. The next step was to absolutely dismember our Constitution. King George VI died abruptly. He had a heart rupture. He died instantly. Queen Elizabeth was just a war veteran. She'd been in the front. She'd been in London rallying the troops. She served herself. She was a mechanic. Believe it or not, everybody, this is real. And so she was 27 years old when she was crowned Queen of England and the UK. And unfortunately for Canada, we didn't get to continue on. It was our politicians of the time who took that crown authority and walked away with it. Queen Elizabeth just didn't know any better. I'm not slamming the Queen. She just wasn't educated that way. She had served World War II, lost all of her childhood to the war, her teenage years, didn't get the crown education a royal family member should have gotten to be ready in case something happened to her father. World War II, it absolutely upset the crown royal family. He died. Queen Elizabeth didn't know enough. Canada walked away with serious colonialism and crown power they took for themselves. Our politicians crowned themselves Canadians. Do you understand that? When we hear the term Her Majesty, you're really talking about Justin Trudeau. And sometimes in provincial politics and provincial acts of legislature, that crown power is reinforced with Lieutenant Governor, Governor General, or through the Premier or the Prime Minister, and they use Her Majesty, Privy Council, all these terms of colonial power of the United Kingdom that no longer exists, not officially since 1952. But it hasn't changed in Canada. We never dismembered our constitution of it. Politicians went, shh, and it was absolutely conservatives and liberals, both of them alike, jointly, graciously took it, kept it a secret from all of you. Not that it's a secret. They tell you sort of the truth, but they don't really ever let it out of the bag or ever, definitely never put a shining spotlight on these powers they have that are illegal in this world. From 1946, we hit 1960. Many other colonial nations went through this, especially Africa. I've studied all of them. I've met their top academics in many, many countries who've went independent from that, absolutely got rid of it. Other countries around the world with other nations to deal with Spain colonialism, to deal with France colonialism. There's a few others, the list goes on. I've went through all these nations, everybody, with their world top experts, best of the best. And we get into constitutionalism and this crown authority. So Canada continued on, other nations did not. There's some that are independent that still utilize that power. India's one of them. India's one of them who exploits it. It's wrong. It's a big no-no. In 1960, the world came together and absolutely cemented the UN Convention of Decolonization. World-binding powers enforced it. Okay? That means it's to be imposed upon every nation. Get rid of your colonialism. Canada hasn't done it. They keep it a secret. The world hasn't noticed. That's what I'm bringing to light today. The fact for all Canadians, all provincial jurisdictions, you're being greatly misled by your political system. We're not going to get into other myths and other ideas. We're talking real facts by the real world experts alive and well today, people who write books all on this stuff, and it's getting out on the world stage. So Canada needs absolute constitutional dismemberment is the legal term, happens all the time in this world, and needs absolute redesign and series of amendments. That has to happen. The process for doing that is set up really stringently, and the same crown power that takes away all your democratic rights tries to block that too. But we can get by that. We just need to win a majority government in a Canadian system with somebody, with a group of experts brought forward to absolutely do that for all the people of Canada. At the same time, I'm also bringing forward another problem Canada has. We have what's called in our constitutional monarchy in that 1867 Act that makes Canada. We all know we have Charter of Rights. It's a limited couple pages of rights. And provinces, some of them have Bill of Rights they put into practice. and they're very limited, only a few pages and not in any great detail. These are acts by your parliament, acts by your legislature, able to be amended. Okay? A premier can come in with a majority government and absolutely throw them to the side. Even throw away your Charter of Rights and Freedoms, even though that's supposed to be bound. And it is, and you can challenge it to the Supreme Court, but you need a lot of money. Okay? If you're Lieutenant Governor, that Crown power, if the Lieutenant Governor, which our newest one from Justin Trudeau, has absolutely approved all of Jason Kenney's bills, it's a Crown power to stamp bills as law. They say it goes to Her Majesty the Queen, but it just goes to Justin Trudeau or whoever is the sitting Prime Minister. It does not go to the Queen of England. Hasn't gone there since 52. She does do some visits, but it's all in a role of decency of the Crown. She has no idea that all this goes on, okay? None of them do in the UK. They have no idea. So, premiers have zero constitution. It was designed, it was given, it was presented as a division of power in 1867. Unfortunately, it's up to the premier's discretion, and because of Crown power, no premier in Canada's history has ever elected in all the provinces, all the territories, to ever take that power and say, look, people of my province or people of my territory, you've elected me. It's wrong that I have absolute autocratic power over you to crack a party whip and make all my MLAs do whatever I say over all of you, the people. None of them have elected to say, here's the power bestowed upon you in the Canadian Constitution that gives you two-thirds of all your rights and freedoms that are supposed to be given to you through a provincial or territorial constitution according to their federal constitution. But no premier is elected to do that. Instead, they take those rights for themselves and they decide whenever they want to give you any rights or take them away or give you none at all. They just have to make an act and pass it with their majority government. An act, a bill, that the next premier can come along and scrap and make a whole new one. They don't have to give you any rights. There's no rules how the province governs you, the people of that province or of that territory. There are no rules telling your politicians how to govern you. They can govern you in any way, shape, or form they like. And if you don't like it, and somehow you find that it breaches the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which does not cover your civil rights, does not cover any of your property, does not cover a whole pile of things, literally two-thirds of the rights in this country you're supposed to have, you don't have because they're governed provincially. And your provincial government, as long as there's no constitution of a province administering the absolute rights bestowed from the Canadian Constitution to the province, you don't get any of them. You're subject to having some, getting them taken away, having them stripped, having them changed, whenever a majority government wishes to do so. Pretty much one person, a premier. You've all heard that there's, like for instance, Alberta, I'm just going to use an example. We have 87 MLAs. Of those, only a handful are in the cabinet. The rest don't do a thing. They don't. They talk to constituents, they fool around, they're called backbenchers, they sit there and they watch proceedings, and they vote on acts and bills presented by that inner circle cabinet, limited few. They actually don't represent their constituents because there's no codified constitution that tells them what their role is, how they're to administer that role, and how they're supposed to represent their constituents. Zero rules at all because we have zero codified constitution. If you look just at our southern neighbors, you even go just south, pick any one of the states that absolutely touch Alberta or any other province along that route, Alaska to our northern territories, touch any of them, open up their constitutions and you will learn codifications and absolute rules for each and every elected official. How they're to govern the people, what they can and can't do, and what the people's power are against them. There's even a good preamble that goes into detail. Most American state constitutions, meaning the federal division of power given to the states, which again is most of the power, just like Canada, but no province has done this. All the states have. You can go look at them and you'll find their governor, which is like our premier, is bound and chained to the people of the state. He or she cannot go against any of their wishes to a point. He can bring up legislation, just like we do with acts and bills, but he's limited to what he can bring forward at his House and his Senate or legislature, or some of them are called assemblies. I bet you most Canadians don't even know that. Not one state runs any kind of similar system. They're all different. They're all like little miniature nations, kind of like the EU, but imagine they're the oldest version of it, because they're one of the oldest constitutions in the world. But their founders were smart enough to get rid of the entire colonial system and give each territory or state that joined their union. That's why they call it the Union, the United States of America, the Union of States. And each state is literally built like the UN. Canada's a UN state. All the UN nations, that was the gift of America. That's what America gave every nation in the world when World War II was won. America gave powers to other nations higher than everybody else. They probably had to with Russia, but I don't think they had to with the other powers. They just did it because it was the formation of the Allies. And now they're suffering a little bit for that. A lot of the gifts they bestowed upon this world have been absolutely usurped, twisted, broken, torn. America's having a hard time getting the world back on track. Now, actually, Joe Biden has been doing some actually really miraculous stuff. As I study the international community, I'm very surprised where he's going. He's taking this constitutionalism right back out there and taking over the international community again as the United States of America. They're looking at all kinds of nations in really bad coup situations right now. They're going after all of them. They're dealing with it. So maybe with the new UNSC rep coming on board, Mrs. Greenfield there, I think she's going to work really well with a lot of what I present. It may even, in fact, be better than what I went through with the Republicans. But this time, not only with independence should a province choose that, if they can't get their constitutions made because a premier won't elect to, I don't know what to say. I guess we're going to have to take it. That's why I want to do a federal, provincial design, and absolutely an independent design as well. Go through all three stages all at the same time, just so all Canadians and individual provinces understand what I'm bringing forward here. This was a monumental amount of work Canada's never ever seen before. Nobody has done this work, and I promise all of you, I have literally the best academics, experts in these particular fields, ministers, supreme justices throughout the world, the best of the best, looking at what I'm doing, sharing with me all of their great work, sharing with me their nations. It's not every nation of the world, but out of the more than 193 and the ones that don't even have status, it brings us up to, I think, about 217. I have literally 70 of the world's best. That's really good. There's never been a Canadian to ever do this kind of thing, ever, and address the real issues. There's not a politician alive or ever been that's ever wanted to bring this forward because they love the absolute autocracy. Aaron O'Toole, Jagmeet Singh, Justin Trudeau, they fight and compete for a crown power, a crown they place on their head. They don't disclose that to all of you, but they're allowed to lie. There's no law. There's no codified constitution in any great detail. Not like the States. They have hundreds and hundreds of pages on rules of politicians. so that any Joe Jane could get elected. And if they didn't know nothing, they would soon learn because of that constitution in place, further backed by whatever state they're representing, backed by an even more greater detailed constitution of even more rules, with all kinds of people in place. Like you just walk into it and there's all these people to help you along, checks and balances all the way through. And we do see in the states on the federal side, the states isn't perfect, and I'm just using it as an example. The states themselves are very well done, very independent, work cohesively pretty good with each other. Even with the major differences, they still work very well together in that union. I think the biggest malfunction they have is much like Canada's, the borrowing on the federal level. And of course, we're seeing that in Canada, borrowing on the federal level. However, when you get to the state municipal level, comparing U.S. to Canada, for example, there's other countries you can go in the world, you'll see that they don't have these monumental debts state by state. They don't. Nothing to match anything in Canada, like Jason Kenney just saying, oh, well, just borrow unrestrictedly, borrow, Rachel Notley, borrow. And for Canadians, I mean, you're all going through it, but look at what Alberta's been doing. Radical borrowing instead of having set rules how to get there and how to do things when it doesn't yield any economic response. Like it doesn't. It's money that has literally gone out overseas, gone forever. We don't even know where this literally $100 billion for not even 4 million people. That's an insane amount of money. The U.S. has nothing like that, not even per person per capita to even compare. Not even close. And their state constitutions restrict all that. There are some serious procedures to go through when you get some radical spender crazy who doesn't put it into your region, when it just floods out into the world and no one knows where it is. This is corruption to the mass. And Canadians in their provinces, this is what you're being exploited by. None of your provincial leaders want to write a codified constitution. We call that the big C. Then there's the little c, little statements inside, like your important preamble and other methods of getting into how they go about putting legislation, how you do elections, not where it's cemented in so hard, right? You call it the small c. Stuff that's not super codified allows a freedom of thought and allows governance to have differences and opinions and present it to the people to make legislation. That's the little c. The big C is absolute strict codification, knowing what to codify and what not to codify. And there's all kinds of examples throughout this world. Different countries have great strengths in different areas of the big C and the small c. That's why I call it the Canadian Constitutionalist Party. That's why I have the big C and the little c, and then you have your P for the party. But that's why I put it in. It's a real highlight to the world of academics on constitutionalism. And these are the people who fight for democracy worldwide. And you know what? Even in the dictator states, there's still those people there still trying to fight back that we call dictators, when we ourselves are an absolute autocracy. And that's what Canadians don't really understand. You're not in a real democratic process. You've never been comparatively placed in law worldwide to look at other nations. I took this challenge for all of you. I spent a year on this. And, I'm not done the whole world, but I've had a great taste of more than half of it. Like I said, 70 of the world's best. We've made a rapport. I didn't win everybody. Obviously, I didn't. I'm not going to. But you know what? That is a lot. That's more than any Canadians ever brought forward. And it absolutely will be brought forward with this party. And you will all who join and get involved in this will get to experience that. No more radicalism, no more crazy, no more championing, oh, this is the greatest guy since sliced bread with his party, when really all we're doing is bringing forward more and more autocrats. There's nothing in place to stop it. It's been going on for a long time. And as the world grows, everybody, the world grows. It changes. We are not changing here in Canada. It's why we're losing so badly. It's why our leaders are going with the worst autocrats in the world, because they're the only regions that match us. Believe it, it's real. And you all know it somewhere in your heart. Doesn't matter if you call yourself NDP, you call yourself Liberal, you call yourself Conservative. It's all the same thing. And even other parties, all at every level and all little narratives, they're all absolute autocrats. And it's absolutely worse in the provinces, the absolute worst. Never mind the federal system that's very broken. But it's that provincial system that has never once wanted to ever give up their autocratic power and absolute authority of a supreme dictator over all of you. And you know it's true. They lie, they campaign on a whole bunch of stuff, they lie their faces off, you elect them, and then they do absolutely the opposite, throw a few little carrots at you, and then they try to buy you off before the next election. But they're operating as an absolute authoritarian. Literally, if it's a man or female, it's a king or a queen when they get that power of premier. When they're elected, they have a 4-year run as an absolute autocrat, a king or a queen. That's what they are, with absolutely zero accountability. There's no system in place to hold them accountable. Unless they break a federal criminal code and get caught in the act of it, which we all know the corruption of how that goes, someone will sweep it under the rug. We all know the stories. And then you don't understand that there's a lieutenant governor rubber stamping from Ottawa, a governor general in Ottawa rubber stamping things, a privy council of appointed people from literally the queen and king system back in the time of colonialism, age of empires. That's what Canada is. We have absolute first-class citizen, friend of the Prime Minister or Premier. We have Privy Council of appointed people, and you don't know what they're doing. You don't know where they're from, but they have to be a famous person, a friend of the Prime Minister, and that's just how it is. They don't have any common ground with any of you. They're all an in-tight little circle of first-class citizens, as was defined in the Age of Empires. You're all third class. You don't count. You're not people even to them. You're stuff they scrape off the boots. That's how Canada operates. Why Canada transitions to all these dictatorships is absolutely because the world is changing, growing, becoming constitutional, becoming democratic, but yet Canada isn't. So Canada has no choice as they start to lose. All of those democratic nations start to go, you guys are messed up, man. Guess where Canada goes? Well, we got to go deal with the absolute autocrats and dictators. And it's getting worse and worse. How far are we going to let it go, Canadians? How far are we going to let it go until we're exactly like these third world countries that we all profess we don't want to be? It's coming. You're all seeing it. This is my video today. I hope it's highly educational. I hope it reaches a lot of people. I know for my loyal followers it's a little bit boring, but get it shared out there. Let new people hear this stuff. Let them experience it as it really is. Because there's nobody coming banging down my door. There's not going to be any legal people saying, oh, he's a fake, he's a phony, he's a fraud. I've got the best of the best in the world. And it's not falsification. It's real. And this party I'm bringing forward, just as I built an independence party in Alberta, I will build the federal party. I will be out in Ottawa. I will be out in Ontario. I will be out in Quebec. It's going to happen. We're going to build a 338. It's going to be something that's never been done since Canada was incepted. And nobody's thought to ever do it or want to do it because they all fight for an absolute autocratic colonial power made illegal in this world. They fight for it. They hold back all the rights that you're supposed to be promised, but no one's going to give it to you. Because why would they? I don't want to be accountable. I can steal from all these people in any province I want, and the Prime Minister will help me as long as I help him steal too. That's what they do. That's what everybody fights for. There is not a party that gets involved in the system. I know I built one. They get involved and they find out this absolute autocratic power and they never give it up. They don't want to. Why would they? You're all going to be their slaves. Why would they give you any rights or codify a constitution? That would take away their power. And right now they have absolute full autocratic power over all of you. Sad. And there are some mechanisms, but you better have the bucks. Take it to the Supreme Court. And even then they might not even be allowed to hear you. Because again, the Governor General comes in and says, sorry, you won't be here in this case. Crown power stamp. Prime Minister says, nope. Same thing's done in our superior courts. I've read the cases where they even say, the justice will say, I'm sorry, and they'll quote either Lieutenant Governor or Governor General and say, I can't remedy the situation. It's beyond my power. I've got stacks of cases. That's just Alberta. I know it's in every province because they're all the same. Zero codified constitution. That's reality. Anyways, that's my education tonight, everybody. Really get it shared out there. It's important. It's important for new people coming on board. You can see my friends list restored and even growing past. Some new people, some old, but people who haven't been involved with me for well over a year, maybe two. And I remember those faces and those people. So get it shared out. Help me, help you. Bye now.